Hi everyone, it's Miss Terry, and I'm here today to talk about my December picks for students in grades 4. We're going to go through some fiction, and then we're going to go through some graphic novels, and then I also have some nonfiction to share with you today. There will be a short pause between each book because I'm using this with my virtual library that gets sent to the students, so I apologize for those little breaks. Let's start with a series of new Choose Your Own Adventure books. I have 3 with me today. 2 of them are fractured fairy tales. The first is The Little Mermaid. A Choose Your Own Adventure is where you read for a little bit and then you get to make choices and then you turn to that page. And this is kind of a fun take on the Little Mermaid story because you actually start on land before you possibly go undersea, and you can choose not to go undersea at all if you'd like. But if you always enjoy different versions of fairy tales, you probably will enjoy this, especially when there's so many different endings, and if you change your mind, you can always go back and make a new choice. In addition to The Little Mermaid, we also have The Frog Prince. And there are some good choices in here as well. You can start off as a space princess, or you can choose to be the handsome prince with a little bit of a green complexion, or if you'd like, you can just jump right into the enchanted forest. That is The Frog Prince. And then the last one is more of a survival story. This one is Could You Survive the Ice Age? You start out in the Natural History Museum, and as you are exploring the different exhibits, some of them come to life. There is a chance that you will not live through the reading of this story. It's Can You Survive the Ice Age? This next one is called Braver, A Wombat's Tale by Suzanne Selfors. And this is the story of a young wombat named Lola, and she is always looking for a little bit of adventure. Unfortunately, a predator that's kind of been exiled for quite a while turns up and ends up terrorizing the wombats that she lives with, including her parents, and takes them away. And Lola decides that she's going to go and rescue them. And in order to do that, she's going to go need to see the Queen of Tassie Island, which is kind of an adventure in and of itself because she has to brave some very big dangers on her way to see the Queen, to ask for advice on how to defeat this predator. If you like stories told from an animal's point of view, then you definitely will enjoy Braver. Another animal story, this one is called Heartsong's Missing Foal, and it's a part of the Unicorn Guardian series of Magic Moon Stable. Unicorns of the Secret Stable, actually. Sorry about that, is the name of the series. And in this book, Unicorn Guardians, Iris and Ruby, work at the Magic Moon Stable, which is full of unicorns. However, Iris and Ruby are the only 2 that know that they exist because they are guardians of unicorns and they're supposed to keep their secret safe. Well, one of the unicorns, Heartsong, is about to have a foal, and whenever the unicorns are going to have a foal, they end up going into the fairy forest. So Iris was kind of expecting Heartsong to be gone for a couple days, but then when she continually doesn't show up with her new baby, Iris and Ruby decide to go into the fairy forest to investigate. And sometimes being in the fairy world as a human doesn't always work out so well. So this one is called Heartsong's Missing Foal. And this is the first in this series. I think we're already up to book 4. So if you were unicorn crazy, you probably would enjoy that. This next one is called Fort Builders, and this is about a boy named Caleb who is broke. His allowance isn't going very far, and he decides that he needs to make some more money in order to buy some of the things that he would like. So he and his buddies decide to start the fort building business because everybody loves forts. Kids love forts, and who's better to build them than actual kids themselves? Unfortunately, they get their first job, and the 4 of them can't really work together very well, and they're having a hard time completing their first project. If they can't figure out what to do and how to build this fort together, then their business is going to go bust. Again, this is the beginning of a new series. There's another one already in the works. Fabio, the world's greatest flamingo detective, is a new mystery series about a flamingo named Fabio who likes to solve mysteries. And in this particular episode, it's called The Mystery on the Ostrich Express. And Fabio and his sidekick is a giraffe named Gilbert, and they have been tasked with solving the mystery of a disappearing necklace on the train. Good host of characters, a lot of great illustrations in this as well. Catalyst is the story of a girl named Zoe, and on the eve of her 12th birthday, she finds a kitten outside her door. She convinces her parents to allow her to adopt it because it's such a tiny little kitten. She in fact names it Pipsqueak. Well, by the next morning, it's already grown to full size, and she's a little bit alarmed. She brings it to the vet, and the vet's like, no, for an adult cat, she's doing just fine. And so he's like, she was just a tiny kitten yesterday. Well, Pipsqueak continues to grow and grow and grow. And Zoe's best friend, Harrison, and she decide that they need to figure out what is going on, try to return Pipsqueak to her normal size so that she doesn't get taken away by scientists and other things like that. So they decide to walk from Massachusetts to her aunt's house in New Hampshire because she thinks her aunt might have some of the answers. And as they go on this adventure, they meet some other magical animals, including a flying hamster and a green dog. And Pipsqueak is now almost the size of an elephant as she continues to grow. So it's called Catalyst. Alone in the Woods is a story of two friends, Jocelyn and Alex, who've been best friends forever until something breaks them up and they're not such good friends anymore. And Jocelyn can't really figure out why. Well, their families always go on an annual camping trip, and Jocelyn is hoping that this will be an opportunity for her and Alex to reconnect and become friends again. Well, they end up on this rafting trip that goes horribly wrong. Their inner tube springs a leak and they find themselves stranded and alone in the middle of the woods, and all they have with them is their swimsuit, their water shoes, and a very wet backpack. Well, it doesn't turn out to just be a couple hours worth of stranding. They end up being alone in the woods for days and nights, and this is the story of how they have to figure out how to work together in order to get back home. It's called Alone in the Woods. Do you think you could survive some days and nights alone in the woods with your friend? Wearing only your swimsuit? That's the part I'm not so sure about. This next one is definitely on the creepy side. This one is called The Longest Night of Charlie Noon. And Charlie has just moved to the country. He doesn't have a lot of friends yet except a boy named Dizzy, who kind of really has a lot of strange ideas. And one day Dizzy convinces Charlie to go into the woods to solve a mysterious code that was left behind there. And while they're in there, they meet one of the biggest bullies at school named Johnny. And the three of them realize that something is not quite right in the woods and that time isn't working the way it's supposed to when it all of a sudden becomes dark very, very fast. And the paths seem to change in the woods, and they're trying to figure out what is going on as they try to solve the messages that are mysteriously being left behind. Again, a little bit on the creepy side, very action-packed. It keeps moving all the way to the end. You might find that you have a hard time putting this one down. The Longest Night of Charlie Noon. So those are some of the fiction stories. Next up, I have some graphic novels. This first one is called Aster and the Accidental Magic. Again, these are graphic novels. And Aster her family has also just moved kind of out into the middle of nowhere, where she meets an older lady who seems to raise dogs, and she ends up giving Aster a dog named Buzz. Well, things are not always as they seem in Aster's world, and when she ends up going on an adventure with Buzz into the forest, she meets kind of a trickster spirit who decides to grant her 3 wishes. Well, her first wish is that she wishes that she could understand and talk to her dog Buzz. Well, this turns out to be kind of not the greatest wish, is now the only thing she can speak is dog, and this is just the beginning of her troubles. So that's Aster and the Accidental Magic. Fox and Rabbit is a story of 2 friends, again, graphic novel, Fox and Rabbit by Beth Ferry. And they're just friends going on everyday adventures. They're going to experience some things for the first time in this book, like cotton candy, and they're also going to try to overcome some of their fears, like their fear of heights, their fear of swimming, and their fear of frogs. Well, it turns out some of these frogs are poisonous frogs, and the friends have to get through that. So if you just like good friendship stories and you like the idea of reading comic books, you probably will enjoy Fox and Rabbit. Attack of the Stuff is about a duck named Bill who he has the ability to hear appliances complain. Can you imagine what a toilet would complain about? And one day he decides he needs to get away from his grumpy toilet, and he wants to use the toilet of a convenience store, but they insist that he buy an orange juice first. And this is just the beginning of his troubles when he discovers that the internet is mysteriously down. And it turns out he's the only one who can hear what the internet is saying in order to fix it. Now try imagining going to the internet place and saying, hey, this is what the internet told me is wrong, and seeing how that would work. So this is called Attack of the Stuff. Who knew that somebody could hear appliances would be able to save the planet? And then the last graphic novel I have for you today is called Donut Feed the Squirrels. And this is about two squirrels, Norma and Belly, who really want a donut. Unfortunately, the donut seller down the road is extremely grumpy. He's just burned a huge batch and he's not feeling very generous to the squirrels and not interested in giving them a donut. So now Norma and Belly must come up with a plot to get their donut. Definitely on the funny side. So those are some of the graphic novels. Let's talk about some of the nonfiction. This first one is called The Worry Less Book, and it's really a book that talks about worries and what you might be worrying about and why you might be worrying about it in ways that maybe you can calm some of your fears about your worries. It's a really good look at anxiety. It has some great strategies in there, especially right now when things are so up in the air with our world, and there's a lot of things to be worried about. So this book tries to help you conquer some of those worries. It's got great illustrations written in a very comic book format. The Worry Less Book. This next one is called Hair Hacks, and this gives you a lot of different ideas on what you can do with your hair. It talks about different ways that you can condition it using household products. It talks about the difference between a curling iron and a flat iron. It has do's and don'ts for flat irons. It has do's and don'ts for curly hair. It talks about different ways that are good ways to treat your hair, especially when it comes to things like dyeing it blue and other things like that. So if you're just looking for some new ideas for your hair and ways to improve the health of your hair, this is a good choice for you. Now with the holidays coming up, you might be starting to think about some baking. This is a new cookbook called Scrumptious Cookies. One of the recipes that I have bookmarked in here, because if any of you would like the librarians at the Two Rivers Library to taste test any of your ideas, we definitely are interested in helping you out with that. But these are cookie dough brownies. One of the things I really like about this book is it also talks about the science behind some of the cooking. Like, how do you make cookies that are so delicious yet remain chewy and soft? And why does it work that way? And what do you have to do in order to make sure your cookies are nice and gooey and yummy? So this is called Scrumptious Cookies with a Side of Science. This next one is called Inside the World of Roblox. So if we have any Roblox fans out there, this is going to talk all about the game that you know and love. And it also has some ideas for some games that you might have missed when playing Roblox. It's going to talk a lot about avatars and other popular games in the Roblox world. Definitely, if you are a fan, you will enjoy this. Or honestly, if you've never even played Roblox before and you kind of want to know what all the fuss is about, this will give you a good introduction to it as well. This next one is a part of a fun series. It's called Battle Royale, Lethal Warriors. And this one in particular is called Pirates versus Ninjas. You know, sometimes with your friends, you always kind of talk about those mock battles, like who would win, Superman or Thor. Well, this one looks at actual historical figures and talks about what they're good at. So like, what were pirates good at? What were ninjas good at? And if they were to match up, what would be the result? But it also doesn't just look at the individual skills. It also looks about like, if the battle was on sea, would ninjas do better than warriors, or would ninjas do better than pirates, or would pirates do better on the water? Or if they were in a building, who would do better then? So it gives you lots of different scenarios, and it will give you some good fodder for your next argument with your friends. This next one is for you Lego fans. This one is called Build It Sea Life. This is a new one in the Build It series. And one of the reasons I really like this series of Lego books is because you don't have to have a fancy kit in order to use these books. So if you just have some Legos laying around and you're looking for some new ways to use them, this one in particular looks at how to build different sea life creatures. So it's going to have sharks and orcas and dolphins and octopuses with hopefully with blocks that you already have. Now you might not necessarily have the colors that are shown in here, but I think most of the blocks are pretty standard blocks. So if you've made your kits and you're like, I just really want to build something new, this might give you some great ideas. And then this next one is called Everything You Need to Know When You Are 9. So if you have already turned 10, this would be a good book to look to say, did I miss anything? And if you're almost going to be 10, you want to make sure that you don't miss anything. And this will give you some different tips and tricks of things that you probably should know by the age of 9. It has some real life things that you probably really should know. And then they also have some fun things in here, like how to solve a crime and how to be a detective in your everyday life. So it's everything you need to know when you are 9. Sometimes it's just fun to read these kind of books to be like, oh yeah, I did know that, or I did not know that, but now I do. And then I just realized that I missed one of my graphic novels, so I'm going to stick it in here at the end. So if you're watching this in order, I apologize, but if you are clicking on one of the links in the virtual library, this one is called The Ginger Red Caterpillar. This is also a Fractured Fairy Tale series written in graphic novel format. These are definitely laugh out loud silly fairy tales, as this is a take on Red Riding Hood, except in this case, Red Riding Hood is actually a caterpillar. There's a whole bunch of books in this series. This is called the Far Out Fairy Tales series. And this one in particular is called The Ginger Red Caterpillar. Hope you enjoy and see something that you like. If you'd like me to deliver it to your school, then be sure to click on the book itself. There is a form on the virtual library that if you click on it, you can fill it out, put your name, your teacher's name, what school you go to, and which books you're interested in, and I will check them out to you if you have a library card, and I will deliver them directly to school. Thank you.